All right. Welcome back to the Anti-Media on UCY.tv. My name is Jake, and you're listening to Jake and DB. And as usual, we're going to try and give a strange transhumanist metaphysical spin on the daily bullshit you're being fed through the media and through your own life. We do our best. I feel comfortable in saying that you're not going to hear as many weird opinions on normal things as you're going to hear in this show. And joining me to talk about it, of course, is the co-host of the show, DB. And DB, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay, man. We haven't had a show in a while, so.
I know.
And so many important things have been happening, and then of course Nick's in Peru. So.
I know, man.
Nick's, I know the kind of time he's having, especially because I'm almost 100% sure that's his first time, and he's doing it up the right way, just the same way I did it, going down there with someone special and going up to Machu Picchu, and especially before they put the airstrip in. If anybody out there is listening that hasn't been to Machu Picchu and thinks that they want to go, in the next year or two, because they're putting an airstrip in there so the rich people don't have to take the train.
Good to know. Good to know. When I find someone special, I'll be sure to take the airstrip in and take advantage of that. No, I'm just kidding. We haven't been on the air much. Normally, we've done our Thursday show. Last Thursday we had John Greenwald from the Black Vault on, which was pretty interesting. I mean, there were definitely.
That was a great show. I mean, because he's seen source docs of things I've never seen, and
absolutely, he's a walking encyclopedia of FOIAs. But I mean, there were definitely some canned answers in there. But I don't doubt him. I don't criticize him for that. I mean, he does a lot of radio appearances, and you got to have he gets asked the same questions a lot, so that doesn't surprise me. But yeah, Nick, the founder of Anti-Media and the usual host on Mondays and Wednesdays, has been in Peru, and so normally DB and I get to do a Monday and Wednesday show in addition to Thursday and get to warm up a little bit. But in this case, has it been like 2 weeks that we haven't done like a Monday or Wednesday show?
Yeah, it's been a couple weeks already. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So I'm a little rusty, to be honest with you. But I mean, there's
there's tons to talk about, and the problem is that to me, dude, and you know how I always like to see things from one or two perspectives. There's at least 3 or 4 narratives going on simultaneously right now.
Yeah,
it's the most confusing time ever to be. You don't know where your loyalty lies. How do you go about these logical conundrums of having pride of living here because you go outside every day and you know that your neighbors are awesome and the economy is more or less functioning, and it is rebounding, at least it is up here, because it was dependent on manufacturing, and that is coming back. So, how do you weigh that with what you hear on the media of all these shitty things going on? It's like there's a parallel reality. I'm not living anything I'm seeing. I don't know how many other people are, but I live in a huge city. It's not, I guess we're insulated up here. I have no idea, but I don't believe what I see anymore on mainstream media at all. Like I consider them to be propaganda at this point.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, the alt-right and kind of the counter conservative establishment is now taking on that same narrative. And so now when you say, oh, I don't like mainstream media or I don't like deep state, now these things sounds like you're a Trump supporter or an alt-right supporter, because they kind of hijacked those narratives, when really it's just, no, it's so obvious now how shitty and biased the mainstream media is that it's impossible to respect them. And I mean, this has been going on for a while. And, at the very least, at the surface level, let's just say that corporate news has an invested interest in keeping people watching for obvious reasons. That barely even needs to be said. They obviously want
keeping you scared.
Yeah, keeping you scared. They want to keep you watching. They want to keep you scared. So that's why when there's a hurricane, even a relatively innocuous hurricane, which of course has not been the case. There's been some very legitimate, horrible hurricanes that were worth covering. But, spending 24 hours on a storm that, it's scary stuff. But they have, a 24/7 narrative of fear going on. And it's not, I mean, a hurricane is a legitimate thing to be scared about, but it doesn't matter what it is. They will find a reason to scare the shit out of you every single night. And,
well, it's like the fires out there, Jake. I know that Nick probably isn't even back to enjoy that yet, but most of my family and friends are still in SoCal, and now it's creeping down to San Diego, and you're like, all right, what started these? The Santa Anas are obviously pushing them around and throwing ash all over the place, but it looks unnatural. Like all of these things, all these events going on are just getting catastrophic. Now we can say it's climate change, and I'll agree. I think the natural cycle, there's something called a Coriolis effect, which has been accelerating and ramping up, and eventually the Earth's going to want to kind of rebound, and that's really the true risk. It's not so much of the planet getting so hot we can't adapt. Humanity can adapt. It's bad for the ecosystem and creatures. I understand that it's going to really slaughter our biodiversity, but life will find a way in a hot climate. The problem is when the climate gets too cold for vegetation to grow, and the Earth does respond.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's cycles that are you can look into rock formations, and especially in fossilized trees, because the rings tell the tales, and they live through ice ages. Trees can live 1, 2, 3,000 years. A lot of these, I'm sure you've heard of Joshua trees. They live 5, 6, 7. Who knows? Maybe they're immortal. So you can tell what the Earth has gone through by looking at especially tree fossilization and rock beds and such. And we know that ice ages correlate every 12 to 15,000 years. But we had a mini ice age 300 years ago, and now we've accelerated and exacerbated the natural cycle with so much carbon burn that now the Earth wants to correct itself. That's the biggest problem, because heating up the Earth, like I said, we can adapt. We can we can have desalinization plants all over the planet right now, giving everybody fresh water. The fact that companies like Nestle are basically fracking water just goes to show that it's about control, because we don't need to do that. So, dude, it's just all a big lie and an illusion. And I can't wait for the shroud to fall off. And if our empire needs to collapse for people to wake up, so be it. The alternative was actually worse, in my opinion, where you would have had this basically all-encroaching global master state. I mean, that would have went in if Hillary got in. So at least with this, we have some chance of sovereignty. And I hate to say it, man, because at heart, I think everybody that loves freedom wants anarchy to work. It just isn't going to work when people can overpower other people and kill them. And that's why the state always is there, dude.
I agree. I don't think at our current state of consciousness, I do not think anarchy is a legitimate option. I do think it could be an option perhaps in 100 years when we've seen an empire like the U.S. fall. We have strong artificial intelligence making a lot of the giant geopolitical decisions, and that's going to happen. I've been covering AI. I've been studying the hell out of AI for a few years now. I'm by no means an expert in any sense of the word, but I definitely read a lot of transhumanist literature, and what we're seeing now with algorithmic artificial intelligence doesn't even scratch the surface of where it's going to be in 20, 30 years. You're talking about legitimate great minds, unfettered by biological impulses, jealousy, fear, and anger, going at trying to restructure the world from a purely logical state of mind, with just predictive programming, predictive knowledge of how different situations could play out. It's going to be a different situation. I don't want to get too far into the AI thing because that'll take over the whole show. But I do think, and to loop back around, of course, climate change is, in my opinion, it's one of the great crises of this age. And you're right; it is more complex than simply just global warming, and it's about.
And the sun's changing. The sun is going through a cycle where it's putting out less than it has, and everybody's waiting for this coronal mass ejection for it to kind of get ramped back up. Because right now it's like an engine at idle, and somebody needs to put the gas on to get it to go into a next phase. And that is, if you really want to look at things from a scientific bent on something that's metaphysical, which is the shift or the ascension, it's because the sun needs to get going again. It's going to have a CME. And every time there's a CME, there's mass mutations on Earth. That's been shown. So I don't know what's going to happen. What happens when humanity gets a massive radiation dose of an energy particle that is going to actually be created out of nothing? We will never have seen it ever. What'll happen to people sitting inside? What'll happen to people outside enjoying nature? What'll happen to people underground in dumps? Will they get fried like a microwave? That would be cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Kevin Spacey will get another chance at his career. Who knows what'll happen, man? It's just...
Oh, God. Well, Franken finally ate it today, and being up here, that's a good thing for us because the guy is one of the biggest shills that there's ever been for corporatocracy. He was a co-author of the Monsanto Protection Act. So say all you want about net neutrality, but
he was stumping for Clinton. He's pro fracking. I believe he was pro TPP. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But yeah, he turned into a shill. Now on social issues, Franken was dead on. But I was going to ask you because Minnesota has just taken a beating in the last few weeks with Garrison Keillor, Franken. And then I swear to God, there was someone else from Minnesota or something else affecting Minnesota. Damn it! I was just thinking about in the car today.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things up here that are a big problem. We have very established and entrenched organized religion that basically gives people a pass up here too for a lot of child abuse, and that's becoming an issue that people are wanting to take into their own hands here too. So. It's a powder keg, man. This community has always been open, but they don't want to be ravaged like Chicago was. And Chicago was never coming back, dude. I don't know if you've been there, but I was there 20 years ago, and I was there about a year ago, and it's destroyed. It's gone. All the money's been filtered into a pretty much walled off portion where the tourists can intermingle with the people of the city that have wealth. Otherwise, you live in the deep suburbs, because if you live anywhere outside of those areas, I mean, it looks like the third world, dude. It looks like Iraq. That's why they call it Chirac. So,
right. That Lee movie, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing: people may hate Trump, and they may hate nationalism, and they may hate protectionism. But the alternative was globalism, which was going to turn us into the third world. And I don't want that, which is why I think a lot of people were thinking of leaving and left already, because they don't want to see and go through the death of an empire. But the truth is, we don't need to die as an empire. We can just contract back into a republic and stop having bases everywhere and bring aircraft carriers back and give them to the Coast Guard, and then we'd never, ever have to worry about being attacked, ever. And places that we own right now, like Guam and Hawaii, if they don't want to stay part of us, then they can go independent, and we can continue to have military bases there if they want us. And if they want China, by all means, have China. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be begging for us to come back. But the way it's going now with us having endless proxy wars for empire, like we're exhausted, man. Like we could never field a draft here. I mean, there's now people that are just refusing to pay their taxes. I don't know if you've seen this, Jake, but this year is expected to be one of those years where they just are going to not be able to collect from a huge portion of people because of the pretty much of the ideological bent.
The Republican tax cut, for one.
Well, it's partially that, but I mean, I've been hearing from some of my liberal friends, well, I'm not going to file this year. It's my protest. I'm not going to file for the next 4 years.
Oh, what an incredible stand. God.
Well,
because
I mean,
as if your tax dollars weren't going to the exact same fucking shit for the 8 years of Obama. Like, give me a break. God.
Well, there was a great video compilation, and I'll send it to you as soon as I can get it back up, but it was basically verbatim Obama and Trump saying the exact same things in their speeches.
Yeah, look, there's divisive issues that separate the two. Obviously, I am much more of a supporter of Obama than I am Trump, but I do not support the mainstream neoliberal agenda that's been going on. And, look, Trump is a nationalist, he's a protectionist, but at his core, he is a rich guy that stumbled into a new phase of his career, and he's loving the popularity. He's loving having a cult following, and you can see with all the decisions he's making, he's creating a brand for himself as an iconoclast, but this is a pseudo-iconoclasm. Look at his move with making Jerusalem the new capital here. I mean,
and what's that going to do in reality is the question.
What is this going to do? And then him saying that he was going to open up ivory hunting again. Like he is it's almost like he got a list of controversial issues that he could, make people's heads explode with, and he's just going down this checklist of issues he can make liberals' heads explode on, and is just one by one ticking them off. But with the Jerusalem thing, that's not just liberals. I mean, no one wanted him to do that. Like seriously, who wanted that? Like he didn't even bargain with Israel. He could have bargained with Israel and made this some concession that they were getting for maybe a different settlement plan in Israel. Here's the great negotiator, right? The big deal maker. And he just gives them this carte blanche thing without getting anything in return for it. It's unbelievable what he did. I mean, there's no logic to it. No one can make any sense of this move.
Yeah, well, there's a million ways to look at it. The way I see it is, there's the angle that maybe Netanyahu's got something over on Trump and kind of has him by the balls and can kind of make him do whatever he wants. I can't think of what that could be. Somebody mentioned in an article I read that he has video of Trump on Epstein Island, and I looked at every single one of these flight what are they called, manifests, and I couldn't find Trump not a single time using Epstein's plane. Now that doesn't mean he didn't go to the island because he can afford his own plane.
What? I thought that was pretty much established.
Nope. I looked at it and I could not find a single time, not a one.
Right.
So whoever floated that out never really actually looked into it, and it was kind of an established misnomer.
The guy's a fucking creeper predator. I mean, come on. There's like 20 claims. There's like 20 claims.
I know, man, but they're starting to look into every one of them, and they're looking in every single woman's background. Every one of them is becoming like a DNC operative, dude.
Come on. Jesus.
I'm telling you, man, it's going to spiral out of control, and people are going to lose their shit when all this stuff comes out. But if you look into all these chicks, they're either former DNC people, or one of them was even caught getting paid. One of them said she took money. So
half the country's liberal, dude. So if you say, I mean, you can't say.
No, I'm talking about working for the DNC. I'm talking about former employees and former lobbyists and such, dude. So Now
But
the
we
one
have
the one the
smoke,
one the one-
we have a smoking gun of him on tape. Come on, man. And
dude,
look,
you gotta. I'm gonna have to send you that back because he's talking about a hypothetical situation, not what he does, but what he could get away with. Now, is it crass? Of course. He didn't say I grab him. He said I could grab him by
no,
the
he
pussy.
said I grabbed him. He says
It's like I grab him.
No,
it's like
dude,
it's
dude. He says
pejorative, dude.
I don't even ask. I just go right up and I do it. I mean, look, I'm not
Right.
reading this
He's
any
talking
more.
to a guy like a guy's talking to a guy and saying this is what I could do and get away
No,
with.
but he doesn't say could do. He says I don't even ask. I just do it. There's no could in there, brother.
All right, I'm gonna send you the actual video before they
Look,
cut it up.
all I'm saying is Trump is a creeper. Is that really that controversial? I really, he's. I mean, there's a multitude of evidence now that suggests this. I don't see any reason.
I think he was a playboy, dude. I honestly don't see him in that light, but I understand the bias because he's a crass guy, and you know, probably a year ago I would have been in the same camp as you, but I think he's just not the same person they're trying to paint him as.
You've really softened on Trump, man. You're kind of all up on his dick now.
Nah, not really, but you know, I figure the alternative is so much shittier, and the system's so fucked that if he can bring it all the way down, more power to it, which he's doing, dude. And
right.
you know,
all right. Well, let's summarize what we were just talking about, which is, for those of you who don't know, Trump made the move. He announced he was going to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which is a very controversial move because Palestinians, you know, don't want that to be the case. They want it to be a semi-neutral area. And so people are saying that this is basically the end of the peace process. And a lot of people are expecting tomorrow on the Holy Day there to be a lot of Palestinian protests. And they've even gone, Hamas has even come out and gone so far as to say there's going to be the Intifada, which is, you know, basically an uprising. So we'll see how far that will go tomorrow. That's definitely something to keep an eye on tomorrow. And of course, this is all reported on the antimedia.org. With the article with Trump's Jerusalem move, U.S. confirms peace is not an option for Palestine. So this is a move that kind of took people off guard. I had not even heard of this as an option. I don't think anyone expected this to happen. He kind of blindsided.
He said he was going to do it though, and he needed to please the evangelical base.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Dude, there's like 45 million people that make up his base right now, but it would be almost impossible to sway him, you know?
A lot of his base does not want him to further enfranchise Israel.
Well, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are looking at it, trying to think of it in a strategic sense of, you know, him. It's like him saying he's going to now try to create a independent intelligence service that's gonna, you know, directly answer to the White House. Okay.
I wrote. I'm just about to talk about that. I wrote a whole article about it. We're gonna get into it. I'm glad that's where your mind's at because
we're paralleling a guy that ran Germany into the ground. Okay, so that's what we're paralleling right now, exactly, and. The enemies and the villains and everything are the same because if you believe propaganda, you actually think that it was as simplistic as your history book teaches you. But World War II was way different than you're ever going to think if you learn, you know. Let's just put it this way: the same.
Write an alternative history of World War II, man, because you have this whole narrative of World War II. That I have never heard before, and I believe parts of what you're saying, mostly just because I have no reason to not believe it, simply because I know like maybe 0.5% of what you know about World War II. But I mean, and I'm not being facetious. I really would like to see you write something about this World War II narrative because it stuns me every time I hear it. Go ahead.
Well, no. Here's the thing. The main thing is that if you believe that Trump has if the military is backing him and a different set of industrialists are backing him versus the older paradigm of people that were marching towards this unipolar world that, by the way, would have required a world war to come to, because Russia and China are not going to ever give up. They may negotiate with us and we're going to get a better deal than we've gotten, but they would never, ever allow us to go in and do what we did to Iraq to them, no matter what. Actually, any country in the world with nukes will never allow that, ever. So we cannot create a unipolar world. We can't without a nuclear war. So when you're supporting someone like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and everybody since Kennedy, they're all globalists, so they want to create this Pax Americana, and that would require nuclear war. That's what people don't understand. Those kind of leaders that want global domination means that family at some point in the future, they're all going to die. So everything you're doing, all the stuff you're building for your family, everything for your future is just a moot point when those type of leaders are in. Now, whether or not you believe that is dependent on how much research you've put into it. If you understand anything at all, you understand that the TPP was about crushing China as an economic power. That would have led to World War III. They would have been squeezed out of the Pacific Rim and would have attacked us. It would have been a requirement. It would have been like us cutting oil to Japan, which led to Pearl Harbor. They couldn't function without our oil. We were the only oil source in the world at that point, besides the Middle East, and the Middle East couldn't get oil to Japan. So you kind of see where World War II started and ended. It's always economic. And it's going to be the same way with this one. Now, is Trump going to still start World War III? I don't know. I'm not sure that there's a way not to, because these fucking people that are at the top want it all. So unless the whole thing collapses, I don't see a way to stop it.
To not fucking attack North Korea.
Yes, but we were going to attack Russia if Hillary got in. Would you rather do that?
No, but I really don't think that was a foregone conclusion, man.
Yes, it was, dude. She was going to establish a no-fly zone in Syria, man.
Right.
We would have been at war with them immediately, with Syria as a proxy.
We cannot say that. We cannot speculate because it literally...
No, we know it would have happened. We know it would have happened.
We cannot say with a certainty that it would have happened. That's an objective fact. We do not know for certain that it would have happened.
Well, thank God it's an alternative fact, is all I can say.
It's an alt fact. All right.
Right. So that was the risk, man. Now, I'm not going to say going to war with North Korea is better, but going to war with Russia would have been the end of the whole world. That's what I'm trying to say. Because they can't defeat us conventionally. That leaves them only one alternative.
When you start bringing in North Korea and then by proxy South Korea, and then by proxy China, you start setting off a chain reaction of other countries getting involved. There's just as big of a danger going to war with North Korea as going to war with Russia. It really is.
No way. No. Well, no way. No way, dude. No way.
It would have been a limited war. You really think the U.S. and Russia are stupid enough that they would go to war? That didn't even happen during the Cold War.
We are. If we have psychopaths that keep running our crushing the election with voting machine fraud and know they can get away with anything, hell yeah, we would go. They'll just go in their bunkers, dude. They don't give a shit about us. They don't have any bunkers built for us. In Moscow, if you go to Moscow, they can put the entire population underground so they can survive a nuke. They don't have that in New York.
If we're dead, they can't take our money.
They don't care anymore. They want resources for robots. They don't want people.
All right. That's a fair point.
I'm just saying, listen to me. The U.S. is an empire, okay? It's a long 5,000-year-old empire. They've moved twice. Once they were in the middle of the Tigris and the Euphrates. Then from there they had to move to Rome, and then from there to Londinium, and then from there to Washington, okay? And they've been having to run.
Saying the U.S. is 5,000 years old?
Yeah, the same people that run the U.S. have been around since Babylon. All right,
That's
the same
some
bloodlines.
that's some David Wilcox shit right there, man.
But it's traceable too. I mean, if you really dig back, you can find which tribes moved where and where they came from and who became what.
Yeah, my problem with David Wilcox is he can never prove anything he says, but I mean,
he can prove it using like papyrus, like documents on papyrus and shit. Like
using thought word ideas, he can prove it, not with any facts or anything.
But I mean, you can trace the stuff back. It's called Babylonian money magic for a reason. Like that was the original bankers that they had 10% of what they lended out. I mean, it was a big scam. So anyway.
Let's get into the deep state thing.
Well, that's who they are. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's who they are.
I know it's connected, but of course you're talking about a more conspiratorial historical lineage to it, which is very interesting. But right now for this part, I want to focus on what the here and now of it, and then let's circle back around and come back to that. Because I don't think everyone even knows what the deep state is, and mostly because it's not really even a proven entity. So I wrote an article a little bit a while ago for the
Trump just tweeted it like 3 days ago. He tweeted deep state.
Yeah.
So when the president tweets it, now there's like 60, 70 million people in the U.S. that saw that are like, what the hell? They looked it up. Now they understand that the CIA and all the intelligence agencies...
A lot of them are probably reading my article. And I say this without any hubris whatsoever because I don't care about anything. But we did put out an article that I wrote called Forget About the New World Order. Here's Who Really Runs Things. And that was Nick's title, by the way. I would have never called an article that. But it kind of summarizes, what we think the deep state might be. But essentially, it is. Let me see if I can summarize it here. Okay, so I'll put it in the words of former congressional aide, who he describes it as a kind of synergistic collusion between Wall Street and the national security state, kind of an extrajudicial alliance of the major globalist power centers. Specifically, he says, it is a hybrid of national security and law enforcement agencies, the Department of Defense, the Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, CIA, Justice Department. I also include, he says, the Department of Treasury because of its jurisdiction over financial flows, its enforcement of international sanctions, and its organic symbiosis with Wall Street. And of course, the private security or the security courts, FISA, are included in that as well, which would, for example, Trump's first beef with Obama upon getting in office was he charged Obama with hacking the Trump Tower. Now, of course, if Obama did that without a FISA warrant, that would, of course, invoke the deep state. And of course, a lot of people think the deep state is operating in a black budget type scenario where they're not beholden to any agency or anything like that. Okay, so with that setup, Trump came into office with a giant bevy of support of people thinking that he was going to kind of overthrow this deep state that was causing us to go to wars, that was causing financial collusion across the world. So now we find out, and this was a report by The Intercept, which is a publication I really like. It's run by Glenn Greenwald. And this new report by The Intercept, it contends that a group, and this is an article called Trump Wants a Secret Spy Network Around the World to Fight the Deep State. It's on the antimedia.org. The new report basically is that the founder of Blackwater, which of course is a private military army, Eric Prince is his name, basically has been shopping the idea of privatizing the war in Afghanistan. Okay, he brought this to the highest levels of the Trump administration. He got his ideological leader in this was none other than Oliver North, of the Iran-Contra scandal. And there was another guy involved by the name of John R. McGuire, who was an ex-CIA paramilitary officer who works for an intelligence contractor, Amantor Group, and also worked in the Trump transition team. Now, the report is that basically Eric Prince went to the highest levels of the Trump administration and sold this idea of a privatized war in Afghanistan. Okay, so basically, let's get the government out of these wars, and let's do a free market of war, essentially. Okay, but this idea that he proposed was essentially a front. Okay, it was a front to create. Let's get people sold on a privatized war in Afghanistan, so that we can then integrate a rogue intelligence apparatus that would report only to Trump and CIA Director Pompeo. And so, of course, they deny it. The White House issued a statement. It was The Intercept called it a non-denial denial of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who, incidentally, I went to high school with and knew her, which is weird as hell. But they basically gave a non-denial denial. They're not aware of any plan at this time to create a private spy network that would circumvent official U.S. intelligence agencies. All right. So right now we have nothing more than a report by a very, very reputable site, The Intercept. I do not think they would have put this out there if they didn't have very, very good sources for what they're saying. According to one source, Pompeo can't trust the CIA bureaucracy, so they need to create something that reports directly to him. Everything's going to be totally off the books. Now, to me, this sounds exactly like what the deep state is. So basically, it sounds to me like they want to create an alt deep state to fight the deep state. They're using back channels and something called deniable assets, and they're creating basically a cover for themselves. And I'm assuming this is what they do with the deep state itself, which is that you basically create opaque legal agreements and deniable assets to disguise your involvement in things. And this is how I assume the triangle structure works for these kinds of conspiracies, like for things with 9/11. You create a tiered triangle of knowledge of who knows certain things. That's what they probably do with the deep state, and it sounds like that's what they want to do with this. So to me, it sounds like an alt deep state, which I said from the very beginning I thought Trump would do. I thought they would basically take the model of the deep state and create a privatized version of it. And it's anyone's guess how this is going to go. I want to get your feedback on it, and then I'm going to read you some Facebook comments of people that were commenting on the article that are pretty interesting. I don't know. What's your take on this, man?
I mean, I can only say it's happened before. This is how the SS began, dude. So
yes.
Here's the thing. Everybody needs to really research World War II to understand the context. If you really want to go into that, Jake, that might be a different show, but I don't know what more we're going to cover up or uncover. As time goes by with our country and with Trump, I don't see him being forced out or resigning, and I know he's not going to be impeached, and I think if anything did happen to his health, Pence would unleash holy fire like no liberal's ever seen, and you would fucking hate yourself, and you would move out of this country so fast you would leave everything behind.
It'd be The Handmaid's Tale if Pence.
Oh God, the people that are wondering about the people that are worried about the gay cake baker.
Yeah.
If Pence gets in, that's not going to even be a debate at all. Everything from the 50s onward will be rolled back.
If Pence gets in office and there's a major terrorist attack, we will be in The Handmaid's Tale. End of story. If Pence gets in office and they have a reason to declare martial law, we will turn into a theocracy.
Yes, we will. And I don't think that people get that there's ways that crazy stuff can happen like that, because they can lump all people of a specific group together if the attack is big enough. You know what I mean? So I don't know what people...
They'll use it to break down Bitcoin. I mean, they'll use it to break down hackers and Bitcoin and leakers and Anonymous, WikiLeaks, all of it. They'll and that's coming, dude. I mean...
It'll take Trump's wiffle bat and turn it into a sledgehammer.
Theorists think that Trump is above false flags. Bullshit. Trump is going to become the king of false flags. You mark my fucking words. It's going to happen.
Well, it may or it may not. I can, it could be used for good if it can be used for good, but...
False flags for good? Really?
Yeah, it can spur things that can happen sometimes, yeah.
Oh, boy. All right, well, let me read a few comments here that I think are interesting. So, in response to the Deep State article, this guy, Antoine Fisher, says, if the Deep State didn't want Trump in office, they would have killed him the second he decided to run for presidency. He's not dead, which can only mean he is part of the Deep State, and he is a ploy, make people feel that Trump is going to fight the bad guys for you, and just sit back and relax, people. All right.
There's two states. There's a Deep State, and there's a different one, too, so we can go over that.
Mark Pulsifer says, their betrayed intelligence is our honored post and office infiltrated. Deep State is defined as enemy, and warfare is warfare. Take our laws back by hanging the lawless scammers or pretenders attempting to overthrow while under oath. I don't know what that means. I wish I hadn't read it. The CIA went private along with Mossad, MI6, ISI, GID, and a dozen other alphabet organizations and terrorist groups back in the late 70s and early 80s. Iran-Contra made that clear. Okay, fair point. He's a puppet. By Deep State, are you talking about the corporate? This is by Bill Manis. By Deep State, are you talking about the corporations and oligarchs who put him in our White House? The ones making billions off his well-thought-out decisions, the ones who will be staying in their luscious, well-escaped estates while being served copious amounts of overpriced champagne and caviar as they watch those who they send into battle die for them on every network worldwide. That Deep State? Can't answer you, Bill. He needs watchers to watch the watchers watching the watched. Oh, man. That is good. Reminds me of a peeled onion. So many layers.
That's the biggest problem.
Here you'll like this. How about he does one that fights pedophilia on the dark web? Oh, yeah, I forgot. He is one. Oh, Jesus. All right. Well, so some good comments here. Trump is the Deep State. He is not, never was against Hillary.
No, he was definitely against her. But, I mean, that's the thing is that I'm not going to sit here and argue that Trump's a good guy because I know what he is. But what he's going to do is become a catalyst for change. So
and that's what
I'm okay with that.
David Wilcox said when I saw him at Contact in the Desert is he basically said Trump is a battering ram and we have to use him as a battering ram, basically.
Yeah, but the thing is that I don't think he's a bad person either. I think he is an oligarch. I think he turned a small $1 million loan into whatever. He's a terrible person. Well, I mean, we can argue all day and night about that. I mean,
there's no point in it. We see differently on Trump's.
I compare him to the guy who was in before, who's directly talking about really horrible things in emails, and I'm sure he's going to get caught up soon. So that's what I think about. I think about him, and I think about the Bushes that were probably responsible for millions of deaths.
He's in terms of policy, he's no worse than Obama.
Well, but you got to look at body count, and you got to look at actions and provable things.
Well, actually, in terms of a body count, I think he may have actually killed more people than Obama did already. I don't know. That was an article on Anti-Media. I'd have to bring it up.
Really,
But
really? Because I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that doesn't make any sense.
I'll have to find that. In fact, I'm going to start looking at it. So you start talking, and I'm going to find this.
Well, I mean, I just that's the thing is I've lived only through the presidents I've lived through, and I thought Obama was going to be who he turned out to be the opposite of. That he could have been the guy that we could have needed, but he was not. He was a plant, so he was supposed to bring the whole country down, but it just didn't happen. So, for whatever reason, thank God it didn't happen, because otherwise, like I said, we would have been in the midst of a world war, because we would have been taken over and then trying to take the rest of the world over. So I don't know, man.
It's a complex thing, and look, I did not want Trump to get in office, but I'm not one of these. I'm not going to repeat the same talking points. I mean, except for the tape where he's clearly referring to
right
his, but we won't go back into that. I'm not going to repeat the same talking points as they all do. I don't like Trump at all. I despise him. But he's done a couple things I agreed with. He pulled us out of TPP, which I agreed with. He's acting like he's going to renegotiate NAFTA, which I agree with. And he dismantled the CIA program in Syria, which I agreed with.
Right.
So I'm willing to admit those things.
Well, there's I mean, he's a controlled narrative branch, so there's a bunch of ways it could have went. They really wanted Jeb bad, but Jeb just couldn't do it. And then they tried to get Rubio, and Rubio's just too robotic. Cruz it looks like he's wearing a human suit. So that's what it fell to, man. And then this opportunity presented itself where you had a guy who's very patriotic, and the military wanted to take back over, and that's what's going on. So if you don't believe it, then you haven't read enough, and you haven't simplified it. The bankers have been in control, and now they're not, and they're not in control anymore. Now the military is again, and it's been a really long time, like 100 years, but they're back in control. And when people that hold stuff like AI, that have Musk working, that's what I'm saying is the new money is with Trump. They decided to work with him because the real money's in the defense contractors. And what has Trump done? What has Trump been able to accomplish in the last year in his office? He's increased our military budget from $670 billion to $826 billion. And a lot of that is going to be justified with new technology to keep us ahead of China and Russia. And these guys that are basically, especially AI, are going to get paid like in the billions, because all of these new things we're developing are all AI. All these drones are AI. The next real war is going to see endless supplies of AI drones going against our enemies, and they're just going to, it doesn't matter how many people they have, eventually they're going to lose. We have an endless supply of AI drones. That's the next war. And that's how it's going to end.
I got some numbers for you, bro. All right. According to the research, this is from commondreams.org. According to research from the nonprofit monitoring group Air Wars, the first 7 months of the Trump administration have already resulted in more civilian deaths than under the entirety of the Obama administration. Air Wars reports that under Obama's leadership, the fight against ISIS led to approximately 2,300 to 3,400 civilian deaths. Through the first 7 months of the Trump administration, they estimate that coalition airstrikes have killed between 2,800 and 4,500 civilians. Researchers also point to another stunning trend: the frequent killing of entire families in likely coalition strikes. The vast increase in civilian deaths is not limited to the anti-ISIS campaign. In Afghanistan, the UN reports of a 67% increase in civilian deaths from U.S. airstrikes in the first 6 months of 2017 compared to the first half of 2016. Okay, so he is killing just as many, if not more, people, innocent civilians.
All right, well, I mean, hard to argue with numbers, but I guess we can just always fall back to other things like what did he do in Libya and how that's still going. I mean,
True. I mean,
I'm not going to give the guy a pass, and I'm not going to say he's that Trump is worse than Obama. I mean, after Obama's 8 awful years and just almost gutting our economy and destroying it. So, yeah, I'm good on that.
He didn't. Okay, look, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, the economy is shit, dude. Let's just be honest. If you don't live on the coasts, your world sucks shit if you don't have a factory to work in. All right.
DB, we were in a recession when he inherited the office. Okay, we weren't in a recession when he left. I mean,
so I'm going to consider the Bushes before him this exact same regime, the exact same political party. Actually, them, and then the Clinton, of course, and yeah, everybody back to JFK except Jimmy Carter.
Way of looking at it, I mean, that makes it pretty much impossible to discern any statistical trends in any way whatsoever. But
well, the economy's gotten shitty since JFK was shot. There was a little hiccup with OPEC, and then Jimmy was there, and then it got out of that, but he got blamed for that. And then we had fake booms because of tech and the Wall Street. And for the most part, the vast majority of people that live in the U.S. right now have a third world living standard, dude. It's true. You can look at what they drive, what they live. Ask Nick when he gets back how people live in Peru.
I agree.
People in Peru live like people here live, dude. It's crazy.
But you were arguing a couple weeks ago that the economy isn't that bad now.
That's what I'm saying is it's rebounding now.
And you think it's purely from Trump?
No, dude. I'm not going to just say let's use him as a figurehead of policies that are changing. So is he the guy that's allowing that to happen? Or is the military asserting itself and not allowing bankers to sell off our country piece by piece because they don't want that? They're nationalists because what good is a military if you don't have a country? Then we're going to have a one world army and be in one world fascism? That'll be so cool. So I'm just saying, dude.
It's an interesting idea to think that they co-opted the Make America Great Again thing as a strictly racist thing when you're saying maybe let's look at it as him trying to divert funds back away from the bankers. That's what you're saying.
Yes. Dude, do you know how much money we've lost over the years, and where in the hell did it go? Where did it go, dude? Like, we haven't even had an audit. We had the one audit.
Factors as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of it. But I mean, the main thing is how do we just create money out of thin air that makes these defense bloated budgets? Like, for instance, I know we spend like 8 or 9 times as much as the next highest spender, who's China, right? For defense spending. But China's rapidly catching up to us because they don't have the same graft like we do. Like, we waste, for every dollar that's spent in defense, probably 3 of it's bribes. Another 3 in bribes. So that 800 billion is more like 100 billion. That's what they actually spend. 600 billion of it gets sucked into the real 1%, which is the people in the MIC. So
right. Well,
it's
we don't even know where most of the money is unaudited.
It's DUMBs and it's off-world and it's secret space program shit, dude, and it's Solar Warden and it's crap like that. And it's also putting up all these cell phone 5Gs that will fry everyone if they try to revolt from all the shit we've been breathing and they've been spraying. So we can get really deep into a rabbit hole. We only have 5 minutes left, but what happened is this. There were bankers that saw you as crap. They saw you as cattle, all right, as a number that was rapidly losing value, not as a human being, just as a nothing, because they were going to go into a transhuman future, and you're not. They're going to just kill everybody, all right? But thankfully, the military, who are more normal people, not billionaire class, just normal people, they couldn't co-opt them, all right? And then with the NSA having all these brute force, vast capabilities to get all electronic communication from all people, it took them a good decade, but they cracked down all the data and they have what they need now, dude. And they're just going to put people away, dude. They're going to put everybody away who's a threat to the new power, all right? The new power is the military. It used to be 100 years ago. People just need to learn their history.
So weird to think, because most people do not think of the military as not having been in control,
They have not. They've been abused. They've been pushed into wars they weren't allowed to win.
Right.
Rules of engagement made it so we couldn't win in Vietnam. We would have won in Vietnam in 6 months. We instead napalmed and tortured, killed innocents. Do you know how we would have beat Vietnam? We would have simply just went all the way on a strafing run all along the northern border and cut off all their supplies. And then if China or whoever attacked us, we would just fire back at them and drag them into a war of attrition, and then they would have given up, dude, because they don't want to fight in the jungle. But they didn't want that. They wanted to spread it out.
It's been the conspiracy is the thought that the idea is not to win the war, but to keep the war going, which is what Orwell said, of course. And, of course, it was clearly the case in the Middle East wars in Iraq, spearheaded by Dick Cheney.
We're still there.
And Rumsfeld, and we're still there.
We'll never be able to leave.
Essentially the same work was going on in Vietnam, and this is exactly what they wanted. And so that's an interesting thought, that the military was actually been a victim of this. That's an interesting thought.
Dude, do regular guys in the military, on average, just want to go out and do this crazy shit? They come home and kill themselves, dude. And then on top of it, their own children are abused by these deep state people. Look up Presidio military base in the 80s, because that's what really started the outrage among the rank and file. When they found out that these sick fucks who were running things were abusing their own children, dude, giving them STDs and abusing them, and they were in films, in pedo films, dude. The children of the soldiers. So imagine, dude.
Yeah,
it's just taken this long to get to these guys.
And I think, that's the undercurrent that's going here that I think is unsaid. Now, I don't think we have enough time to go into what could come out about some of that stuff.
Let's talk about our next show, because I want to kind of preamble about it. We'll have LD. She'll be back. We're going to have a very special guest, maybe two. They'll be talking about these rings and the deep state rings with the trafficking and their direct knowledge of it, dude. It's going to be a blockbuster.
That's awesome. Yeah, LD is a very, very cool host. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening. DB, thank you, as always. And
thanks, Jake.
Yeah, buddy, good show. All right, everyone. Have a good night. And
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.